Well, hello and welcome to my business story podcast with your host, Johnny Perez. That's me. Yeah. Today, we have an amazing photographic guest who is Jennifer Higham. Jennifer Higham is a portrait and real estate photographer from Jennifer Higham Photography. She is also the president of the East Haven Chamber of Commerce. So get ready to talk about portraits, real estate, and East Haven Chamber of Commerce scoops, inside scoops of all that. And here we are with Jennifer Higham. Hello, Jennifer. How are
Hey,
you?
how are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm fabulous. So I'm looking forward to talking with you a little bit more about photography and real estate and all sorts of inside scoops of Chamber of Commerce scuttlebutts and all that. So how are you doing so far?
Doing well, doing well. Uh, Keeping busy, watching the markets and everything else, especially real estate. So
That's true.
keeping you business.
Awesome. All right, cool. So, if you can, just sort of take us back to the beginning, and what were you doing before you started your business, or did you always have a camera since birth?
Oh, it feels like I've had a camera since. Um, Way back in the day, my father put a camera in my hands, and he was the avid photographer back then. Um, and started teaching me. I was young. I was probably like 10, I think. And for whatever reason, they had a photo lab in his where he worked, and I would take the pictures, and I would get it so excited because he would come home. It would just be contact sheets. That it wasn't, actual photographs or anything like that, but contact sheets. And I'd get so excited. Not to say that my photos were uh, good at all. And there's usually pictures, my toys or, flowers and stuff like that. Nothing extravagant, but it did put the bug in my heart of photography. And I kind of, for my birthday, they got me a Minolta 735 millimeter, and I was so excited. And then I became the person that always had a camera on their shoulder going to parties and even in high school. That's where it really took off that I would bring my camera to school and start taking pictures. And it kind of bloomed from then. And I was working at Stop and Shop in East Haven, and Picture Perfect opened up next door to Stop and Shop. And my best friend was like, "Listen, you're in photography. You like it. You enjoy it. Why don't you apply?" So I did. And I got the job. I worked in East Haven for a couple years. And then we opened up a store up in Guilford. And that was 1987. And I went up to Guilford and uh, became manager up there.
Wow.
And it was a really great experience for me because not only did it help me with my photography skills, because I met a ton of different photographers that
Yeah, I bet.
asked them questions, and, they helped me along and helped me get my photography kind of going. Not that I was doing any business back then, but the other thing that Picture Perfect did was my the owner enjoyed golf more than running the store. So I got thrown into doing the payroll, doing the scheduling, the hiring and firing, that pretty much the entire management of the store, which put me in that business category, which also introduced me to, and I'm going to throw it in there, the Chamber of Commerce, because he had me start going to their business after hours. So networking was brought into my life.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was like I always say I graduated from the University of Picture Perfect because I really learned all my background skills from the store.
Yeah.
And obviously the technology kind of took over, and one by one we had three stores. The North Haven store went, the East Haven store, and I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for him to tell me about the Guilford store. And
Yeah.
sure enough, he was like, "We gotta close." And this was
Mhm.
2008, so I went from 1987 to 2008 in the store, and I had to make a big decision at 40 years old. What was I gonna do with my life? And, my next thing in my head was, "Oh, I'm gonna start a photography business." And
Mhm.
I jumped into it from there. um, pretty much photographing everything I possibly could.
Yeah.
People, weddings, events, pets, everything. And trying to find where my niche was. And that's kind of where it started. Uh, and it helped me along a lot with my business as well. So it's
Mm.
nice background.
Yeah, and then talking about, photography, we're both photographers, so we could sort of talk a little bit more, expansive on these topics, that in-depth knowledge. So what was the sort of you mentioned the how you transitioned to starting your own business, after you got let go from the Picture Perfect. Um, what aside from that kept you going sort of in the entrepreneurial kinda mindset? Like, what were the things that fueled you as a photographer?
Making money. Um, but the love of the art,
Mhm.
you know, it was I- it was very much a part of me. So
Yeah.
making this my business, it just kind of made sense. I mean, I always tell my kids, do something that you love. And I loved photography. So why not make a business out of it and do something I really enjoy?
Yeah. And did you have a clear plan when you started, in your venture?
No.
No.
I I I knew I was going to try to, like I said, find my niche, and I did weddings for quite some time.
Mhm.
But the other thing that I did do, which was uh, one of the best things I ever did, was I got in touch with a lot of the highest wedding photographers in
Mhm.
the state and took their workshops, and it forced me to get out of the box and
Mm.
get more creative. And I saw the difference after I started going to the workshops of how I can make my photos better, and sitting with this great group of photographers and talking to them and literally going out. We went out on Carla Tinek was one of my
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
my favorite photographers.
Mhm.
She took us out into the middle of Hartford
Mhm.
and got flamenco dancers, and they were
Mm.
dancing in the middle of the streets in Hartford, and she gave 5 minutes to get your best shot. Like, "Okay, here you go. You're gonna set your camera at this and this, and you're gonna go." We took them back to her place and, edited them, and then everybody critiqued the
Mhm.
photos. And you have to have a thick skin, as in any kind of art. But it was one of the best things, one of the best experiences I have ever had, and it really forced my hand, forced my creativity to go further, and it was a great experience, and that brought me to a different level where I knew, okay, I really want to do weddings, and
Mhm.
I really want to get with people, and I enjoy people. I'm a social butterfly. I enjoy
Mhm.
people, so that was kind of my push toward that in portraits. So that was my niche in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it's changed, things happen. I'm getting older. My body couldn't handle the 12 hours standing on
Yeah.
my feet.
14 hours.
Past the time, if you had to get down low, I couldn't get back up,
Yeah.
so, so
There now.
weddings kind of went to the wayside,
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you 1 second, just wanna turn off notifications. I thought I already did. Mhm, and do not disturb. Good. So one thing I did want to sort of, ask you, we're both I mean, we're not the same age, but you probably delved into the whole film realm a lot more than I did. How was it for you, being you're probably already, good amount of time taking pictures with film before it transitioned. How was that transition for you?
I didn't wanna transition. I remember when it all started coming out, and I was really you just get so used to a
Mhm,
certain format, and film was it for me, but I caved in and I got I think it was a Nikon D70.
mhm,
Um, when I took it to my first wedding, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is just amazing," because you
mhm.
can actually see if you're messing up, you know?
Yeah.
as opposed to, crossing your fingers as you're watching the film come out of the processor. So it was it was a great leap of faith, but you can't say too much about digital because it did help me in the fact that some of my settings off and then go from there. And it helped, it was definitely a good thing. So, but it took me a while to switch over because I just, and funny thing is, I've actually taken my 35 millimeter on vacation with me because just to play, but the first thing I do is I take a picture, and what do? I look at the back of the camera, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is not digital,"
Yeah. There's something there.
you know? So, but it was a big change, but it was a good change.
Yeah. And do you you sort of answered my question briefly, but, like, do you still go to film once in a while just to see if you still got it kinda thing?
Not often, but it's like a challenge for yourself to see, and that whole, um, not knowing what you took and then going and picking up
Yeah.
your pictures and seeing them, and it's a whole different feel as opposed to the instant gratification of digital.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I'll take it with it when we go on vacation. Don't get me wrong, I bring my digital camera too,
Mhm.
but it's just to play around with it, do go old school style.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, I guess, re got the itch again. Recently, I found a bunch of rolls. Well, not found. I've had it in my glove compartment to find a place to develop a bunch of rolls of film.
Yep.
I had like 8 rolls that I needed to develop. I went to a place in Hamden. I forget the name of the place.
Ross.
Uh,
Ross
huh?
Center.
Yeah, yeah, Ross. I'm like, ooh, it's like sort of a blast from the past because there aren't too many places like that.
No.
So I went to develop them there. I was looking around, I'm like, huh. I actually got a new roll of film. Great. Cine Still
Yep.
film. Um, I'm still halfway through the roll, so it's like it's something where it's like it's a $20 roll of film, so not too crazy, but still a little, and I'm like, I wanna be selective on certain shots, and I think that's where, the big change was for me with film. It's like you're seeing that the numbers go down versus with digital, it's like you throw in a 128,
Yep.
and you have
Yep.
5,000
Keep
pictures.
going. You just keep going. Yep.
Yeah, and then you're like,
Yep. You don't
go.
don't well, that was the big thing with weddings on film. It was like, okay, you knew you were on number 30, you're like, okay, and then to change, you have to change over the film. Yeah. So that was the other thing that made it easy. Is like you just didn't worry unless you took a ton of pictures and you ran out of, files. But
Mm.
um it was a different change. It was definitely a different change.
Yeah, I'm actually getting also within that same vein, I'm looking into getting a 16 millimeter camera, for video, 'cause it's just a different feel, just different look. It's like you could do whatever, kind of plugin to try to make it look like film, but only film can look like film, you know?
Exactly. And it's just got that, I don't know, that graininess, that
Ye
old school look to it, and it's part of the art. I
yeah,
think too.
yeah. So, going back to the business end of things, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced, early on in your business?
Uh, well, just getting all my ducks in a row. I have a great accountant who's like, you have to do this. Um, you know, getting all your paperwork together. Just there's a lot with the state and getting your EIN number and make sure that you sign up for everything. That was a big part. Obviously, like diving into buying cameras,
Mhm.
expense of it all. And I think probably the second biggest thing was, and to this day, it's probably the hardest thing to determine is cost. What are you going to charge? How are you going to charge? And you'd kind of look at what everybody else is doing to see what bar numbers. And obviously, like when I first started, I was doing stuff for free. I was doing it
Yeah.
and everything else just to get a portfolio together, just to get
Mhm.
myself going. And then, gradually trying to figure out where my prices should be. And what I should be charging. And it got easier as I went along, but that was probably the toughest part about business. It's like, okay, what do I charge? Well, how much time am I putting into it? I mean, for us, obviously with digital, there's other than us buying our equipment and stuff like that, there's really no, I don't wanna say no overhead, but it's the time, it's the creativity, it's not only the time that you put in shooting it, but more so editing it. The editing parts were, hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. So, that's a lot of creativity time, and I think that in the art world, I think that's hard for people to understand.
Yeah.
Then I've heard, many people say, "I don't understand why photography is so expensive." It's like it's not just the 8 hours that we shot your wedding, it's the,
Mhm.
16 to 20 hours that we also edited all your stuff. So you have to
Mhm.
take all that time and create your creativity into consideration on what you're gonna charge. And I think that was probably the hardest thing for I think for anybody to, especially with it's not tangible, it's like you have something tangible. All right, here's the price. I'm going to go up, you know, 3 times on it. So then that's what I'm going to sell it at.
Mhm.
This is not tangible. So it's like you have to take those things into consideration in order to figure out a price.
Yeah. And then with all of that, were there any moments where you just wanted to call it quits?
Never.
No.
Never. I mean, they're, and I'm sure you can
Brief
understand.
moments, maybe.
There have been times, you come home from a wedding, and I always call it the wedding hangover, not
Mm.
prank or anything, but the next 2 days, you're just like, "I don't wanna do anything." Wiped out, and if you have a back-to-back wedding on a weekend, forget it, you're done for, like, 3 days. Those are the times where it's like, "Okay, is this worth it? Is it worth it?" Then you start editing the photos, and then you start seeing what you've created and the people, and I'm very, very, very lucky. All of my couples have been tremendous. Like
Mhm.
I maybe 2 I had issues with in all my years of doing weddings, and nothing crazy. It was just, it was a you always have one of those kind of experiences at times, especially
Yeah.
with weddings. But I've loved all my couples. So, when you get that end result and you send in the photos and then they're like, "Oh my God, I love them. This is great." It
Yeah.
it's all worth it. It's so worth, your time, your energy and everything, your creativity to put into this. So that's something, it's hard to for anybody else unless you're creative to understand that feeling where
Mhm.
you feel, "Okay, I did my job, I did it well," and it pushes you. It pushes you to do more and more and more. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of the things that and for me, I've had triple plays and 4 weddings back to back, like, once or twice in my life.
yeah.
My wife, thankfully, thank God, she doesn't push me to, do a huge honey-do list after that. She knows I need to recover.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've had those times, and yeah, even in those moments, you're like, "Is it all worth it?" And then I look back at the footage,
Yeah.
cutting it together and like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
these are time capsules you're
Yeah.
creating."
Yeah.
Mhm. With the business, did you have any I know you mentioned, was it, Tina Teniek? You mentioned her. Was she, the
Oh,
photographer that you
Carla Sinek, yeah.
yeah, Carla. Yeah. I think Tina. Sorry, Carla. D Was she like a mentor to you? And then were there other photographers or the business owners that were like mentors to you growing up?
Yeah. So, Steve DePino, actually,
Mhm.
he was one of my customers at Picture Perfect, who he was, pick his brain every once in a while. And I did take a couple of lessons with him,
Mhm.
and funny because he shoots Canon, and I have
Mhm.
Nikon, and he would be like, "Oh, let me just see your camera," and it
Mhm.
was like a foreign alien to him. When I
Yep, yep.
pick up my camera, he'd be like, "I don't know what to do with it." But yeah, Steve and Carla were a big, big help in my wedding and my photography alone in my my career. So they really created helped me create me as a photographer. So
Mhm.
they were wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. And did you have any other, sort of business mentoring aside from photography?
Um,
Photographers, rather?
my father, he was in the business world. Um, he was the one that I would go to, like, "Hey, listen, this is happening, blah blah blah," and he would always help me out with it. My ex-husband is actually, oh, I don't even want to say what he is, but
Mhm.
he was an accountant, and he did help me along with certain things that he had to, that I had to do,
Mhm.
get my business in order. So I had a lot of resources that helped me along, especially on the business end of it.
Yeah.
Um, and, it worked out well.
Mhm. And then with, starting your business and then obviously your personal life changes because it's not a 9 to 5.
No.
It's, 40/24,
Yeah. Yeah.
24/7. Um, so how did that sort of change your personal life, switching that 9 to 5 into a business and everything?
Um, it it switched it only for the fact my kids were young, then, and it was hard, especially because the kids were young, and sometimes I regret a lot of things that
Mhm.
I mean, when I was with my kids, we did stuff constantly because I always felt like I didn't have the time during the week because I was either editing, if on the weekends I was shooting, and it was difficult in that area, but when we did have time together, we made the best of it. We would go places, we would do things, and it that helped, but it was a struggle, and then, also, and I'll throw the chamber in here a little bit, but
Mhm.
no one can promote you except for yourself, especially when you're your own business. And I joined the chamber in 2008, and it was one of the best things I ever did because it put me in front of people. Like I said, I'm a social butterfly. So I was constantly networking as well. So it was going to the business after hours. 3 months after I joined the chamber, I got on the board. 2 years later after that, I became a vice chair. And 2 years after that, I was chairman. And then in
Mhm. Wow.
2018, I became president. So the chamber's been a very, very big part of my business life as well. But it also connected me with so many people. I mean, it connected us,
Mhm.
where you and I have gone back and forth with, if I couldn't do something, I refer you,
Mhm.
I mean, and that's what it was all about. And the connections that I have, I mean, I've lived in East Haven all my life and I know a lot of people, but this brought me into a different level. It brought me to, the town hall, and it brought me into more businesses in town. So I was getting phone calls. Hey, can you do corporate shoots or can you do
Mhm.
product? Yep, I'll come and do it. I'll come and do it. So it gave me that, the networking was a huge part for me. And that's why, I mean, that's why I believe in the chamber. And that's why I've stayed with the chamber for so long because it definitely um, helped me. But that being said, going back to your original question,
Mhm.
it took up a lot of my time. So it was a struggle. But in the end, I mean, my son just joined the chamber. He's an artist as well, and he just joined. I'm like, no, get yourself out there. Trying to teach him what I learned from it, and
What's his business and all that?
so it's called Project Blackfin, and
Oh.
he's an artist. He just had a big show at Thimble Island, and I'm like, and he's going through the same struggles I did, and figuring out the cost, figuring out how to do this, how to promote yourself. And he's a great marketer. And so he's very creative, but I'm like, you got to get yourself out there, put yourself in front of people because
Mhm.
that word of mouth social media is great. Don't get me wrong, social
Mhm.
media is great, but word of mouth, it's a more honest way of talking about a business. And I think that, if somebody has a good business and they say, oh, I need a photographer. Oh, well, call Jen because she did my whatever. And that was a great thing. So I like word of mouth more than anything else because it's great.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it was a struggle with family and stuff and trying to prioritize. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
family life, work life, networking life. So it was a lot, and it got easier
Yeah.
as I got older. But I'd make the baseball games. I made sure that I got to what I needed to get to, unless I had a wedding. So with the weddings, I can't change that around, but it worked out. And then eventually, my body was just like, "You cannot do weddings anymore."
Yeah.
Hence,
I'm hit
then the real estate. So.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hitting that brick wall myself.
Yep.
Uh, so I've been hiring, other filmmakers, and I we're gonna be getting back into wedding photography, because, we've been getting a slew of people asking because there are a bunch of companies that they do photo and video for
Yep.
weddings,
Yep.
so it's a lot of money on the table left on the table after the fact, and, we're losing business because we don't do photography,
Yep.
because they wanna do a package deal, and so
Yep.
they, recently, got in contact with uh, a couple of, wedding photographers that, they do both photo and video, and they're married, 2 of them, like, they're married to each other.
Yep.
And so, they wanna partner with my company, so that's gonna
Yep.
be, interesting kind of coming back, to that. But then, talking about, certain habits and mindsets that sort of keep you going in the grind, what what sort of helped you push through those tough times, when not similar to, but sort of similar to, the transition from film into digital, now in the advent of AI and social media and all these other things, so what are the kind of things that sort of keep you focused, in your headspace, in producing, quality content?
Um, Staying educated, that's a big thing. But like I said, I just got in. I got into the real estate photography, and of course, with the market going up and down and up and down and up and down, by January, February, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not gonna, this it goes, whoop, it just goes down. And now spring market is like, yay,
Mhm.
so it's you gotta know where your limits are, and how seasonal things are, and because we've actually had such a cold winter, and
Yeah.
it's still, obviously,
Cold free?
it's still cold. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that the hills are gonna have snow today, so
Mhm.
it's, it's kinda crazy, but
Mhm.
you just kinda have if you just stick with it and you keep going, and I do, try to stay up to date with everything. Um, the company that I work for, that I do the floor plans and virtual tours, they're great. They're
Mhm.
always, like, coming up with new and different, things that you can add on, so
Mhm.
I'm doing CAD now,
Yeah.
uh,
Awesome.
so it's a I love this company, and it's been really, really good to work with them because they are so innovative, and
Mhm.
they're very open to new challenges that real estate agents have,
Yeah.
that we as photographers can offer them more.
Yeah.
And so those things kind of keep me pushing along. The CAD was a big thing, because then I could offer it to architects and new construction and stuff like that, and people doing renovations, or if they're doing flips,
Mhm.
so it brings you into a different realm of clients. So
Mhm.
you just got to keep looking and pushing and finding things that you can offer that will enhance what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you doing with the whole AI revolution? That was it right there. Eh,
I'm not thrilled with it.
yeah.
You know, does it make our editing process a little easier? By all means, yes.
Mhm.
Um, it scares me.
Mhm.
AI all round scares me. Um, I mean, it has its good points, and
Yeah.
it has its pros and cons, just like anything. But I think, I mean, the one thing that I notice, like, I mean, I do use like Chat GPT
Mhm.
for the letters, and for promoting stuff for the chamber and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But the scarier part is it learns way too much about you. I saw, like, it was on Instagram. They said, if you use ChatGPT, ask it to roast you.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god. I didn't realize how much information was in there that it totally I was laughing so hard, but I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god."
Uh-huh.
It knows way too much about me.
Uh-huh.
And those little things that scare you, you know?
Mhm.
Um, but it does come in handy. But
Yeah.
I think the further we go down the road, the more advanced this stuff is gonna get.
Mhm.
And I think the privacy stuff, that's what scares me a lot. You know, there's so many scams out there now, and I think it's going to get a lot worse on that end. But
Mhm.
as a business owner, it, there's good things about it, but there's also cons. The AI. Oh, we'll take we'll take your selfie and make it into a business portrait, and then look
Mhm.
at the ants and they have seven fingers. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I mean, there are things that as photographers, it scares you, because it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
But it's not real life, and that's what people got to understand. It's
Mhm.
not. And don't get me wrong. I get people that are like, "Oh, could you please touch up my face?" Yeah, I get, blemishes and stuff like that, but I'm not going to change you because it's not going to be you.
Yeah.
So, that when you use AI, and I've played around with it too, and it's like,
Mhm.
that's not me. That's not what I look like, and
Yeah.
if you want you could tell when it's AI. So, mm, yeah, it's pros and cons, but
Yeah.
as for photography, just keep with us, please.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing that I got into AI hard, when I started really learning how to use it, with ChatGPT and then a bunch of other programs. I've recognized a lot of businesses hopping on the bandwagon, not really knowing, like, everything that you're saying.
Yeah,
It's not reality.
right.
It's I don't know, it's a kind of technology that I think we're investing too much time and energy,
Mhm.
not recognizing that one phrase that comes to mind is, "Free is never free,"
Yep,
because a lot of these AI things they're free.
yep,
I mean, I have a paid, ChatGPT account,
right.
but aside from that, it's learning.
Yeah.
What is it learning? You alluded to part of it, a
Mhm.
ton of your privacy that you're giving over freely.
Yep.
But the other aspect of it is I've caught myself getting lazy when I started using AI way too often,
Yeah.
and it's like with the emails especially,
Right.
uh, especially, that it'll give me a sort of a breakdown on the bottom, like I use, Gmail, and so it'll give me a breakdown of how I can respond to it. I'm like, "But none of those sound like me."
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's
Yep.
like we get into the sometimes you get into the trap of, "Oh, it's just easier," but then it's like, "But it's not
No.
you."
Yeah. Yeah. And you can
Technology.
tell. You can say you get. I mean, I've gotten emails, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't this
Mhm,
person. I know it's not this person. This is AI." And I think my fear, and my biggest fear, is for kids.
mhm,
Like, don't don't put the stuff into ChatGPT. Don't do that, because what is it doing? It's not the kids aren't going to learn because, it's easy. It's just going to make a lazy society.
yeah,
And, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll type up a letter and I'm like, look, I really want to make it a little bit more professional. I'll throw it in, and then I'll take that out and then
yeah,
put my twist to it. So it's,
still tweak it.
the part of me.
Mhm,
But it could really damage, our society, I think,
mhm,
as, our kids get older and it becomes more and more
yeah.
prevalent, you know?
Yeah, and so I started using it more like a tool that it is
Mhm.
versus it taking over my business, and
Correct.
because there are AI tools for not just, writing, but also creating images, creating videos. It's not 100% there, but it's
Right.
close.
Yeah.
It's scary close, especially for pictures. I've
Yeah.
created some pictures. I've seen some. I don't know if you've seen some, like total Instagram accounts that's all AI,
Yep.
but it's like you could barely tell. Only
Yeah.
if they didn't say that, it would look like really good
Yeah.
portraits.
Yep.
You know, it
Yeah.
freaks me out. Anyway.
I know. I know.
So getting back to real life, in your business, have you ever had to shut an aspect of your business down? You sort of alluded to it with the wedding photography, but were there other ventures that you were a part of, then you say, "Hey, this is probably not for me," and you just walked away?
Weddings probably, I would say, is the only thing, and believe me, I would still be doing weddings if I
Mhm.
could. But, I ended up having carpal tunnel surgery. I actually got photographer's elbow, which I for her yeah, it's from holding the camera. It's like tennis elbow,
200.
but it's because of holding the camera the way that we hold the camera, I was getting stress on my elbow, and it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So, my knees, it was just taking a toll on my body, and I just
Mhm.
couldn't do it anymore. Um, portraits I enjoy. I'll do newborn photos. I'm not, the cutesy cutesy. It's more casual and stuff like that. It's not, I'm not gonna put them in like hanging things with, that they're sitting there like that. And um, my first newborn shoot was twins.
Mm.
I was like, well, if I'm gonna try this, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And it came out fine. It was
Mhm.
great. The mom and I were both in tank tops by the end of it because we pushed the heat up to about 85 degrees to make them go to sleep.
Oh.
But newborns was not my thing. I'm like, after a year, like, you want to do a cake smash? I'm there. But newborns was not my, I realized it was not my niche, and I've done a few of them, especially as you know, when you have weddings, then they have babies and they
Yeah.
about old, and I've had, no problem. They likes my style with it,
Mhm.
but definitely, I'm like, can we wait until she's one? I like cake smashes. Cake smashes are a lot of fun.
Delicious.
Um, other than that, I mean, I've done food photography, which I really, really enjoyed. I worked with Vinny Patton on his book. It
Okay.
was a Route One food run, so it
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
Connecticut all the way up to Maine. And that summer, I did 75 restaurants
Wow.
and traveled from Connecticut up to Maine. And it was fun. My kids loved it because every time I came home, I had a cooler of food. When I would come
Mhm.
home, they would give it to me after we shot it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Would I do it again? Not for a book.
Uh-huh.
Did not for a book. And I did it because Vinny and I are good friends, and I said, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I do it, but I would never do it again. Not for that many restaurants. Like, if a
Yeah.
restaurant called me and said, hey, I need you to do some
Mhm.
promo photos, I'd definitely do that, but not 75
Yeah.
restaurant in the summer.
A lot of fast food.
A lot of fast food, a lot of miles. A lot of miles.
Yeah. Yeah, I done my stint. I actually just got connected with a company that's all they do, and so photo and video for restaurants, so I'm gonna be getting that fridge full of food again,
Yeah.
but I'll learn how to say no at the
There you go.
restaurant,
Yep. Yep.
limit the carbs and all that. So as it pertains to talking about failure a little bit, were there any kind of what were your biggest lessons with failure in the business, and like what kind of lessons did you learn?
Probably in weddings. Like,
Yeah.
probably, well, yeah. Um, Having that list, and making sure you get all the family photos. I always would tell couples, I don't know your family. You have to and make sure you tell me. But when the mom of the bride had had a little too much to drink, and
Mhm.
I didn't get that side as much as I got the other side, I got in trouble for it. So it's like, it's you have to make sure that you are on top of everything, being organized. Um, Other than that, I'm happy with everything that I've had in my business. Maybe, not charging enough
Mhm.
for certain things when you realize after the fact, especially with the real estate. There are things that I get charged for when I do drafts and stuff like that, and making sure
Mhm.
that those costs are um, reflective, what I'm going to get back as opposed to what I'm putting out for it. So those are the important things to really understand what you're paying and what your worth is, and make sure that you get your money's worth. But other than that, I've been pretty happy in my business. You make mistakes and silly ones or whatever, nothing,
Mhm.
earth shattering, but you can get through them as long as you're upright and honest about things, then you don't have any problems. If you realize you have a mistake and then you try to hide it, well, that's not going to be good on you. So you own up to your mistakes and you make do with what you got to do. So yeah, those are
So y
yeah, yeah, that's about that.
yeah, so you learned a lot about character because that's really
Mhm.
what that's about, and making sure you're true to yourself, true to your clients,
Yeah.
and all that. Now speaking about burnout, were there any situations that caused you to, just not so much quit, but, like, feeling like, "I need a break?" Like, how did you deal with those, aside from just a vacation, but
Well, um, burnout, I think I don't get burnout, but I
Mhm,
get the antsy,
mhm,
when it's slow, and that's what drives me crazy. But that's when I'll take the camera, take the dog for a hike, just shoot like I used to shoot, not for anybody, but for myself.
yeah,
And that's my kind of re relaxation
mhm,
mode, stuff like that. But yeah, uh, you during the pandemic, I did have burnout, I have to say,
mhm,
because I want to say I started real estate in 2018, and then the pandemic happened in 2020, and it was insane with real estate. I was
yeah,
doing 4 or 5 shoots a day, and
yeah,
even though Connecticut is small, it takes either a half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour to get to wherever. And inevitably, when I would really try to schedule, like, okay, I'm gonna go to North Haven, then I can go to Southington, then I can go to Cromwell or whatever.
mhm,
Try to make it. It doesn't usually happen like that. So I was in the car constantly, and it was like, okay, we'll go New Haven to Cromwell, and then I'm gonna go back to Branford, and then go up to Fairfield.
yeah,
I got burnt out during the pandemic because there was and it was a great time for me as a photographer because you couldn't go into people's houses, so the virtual tours were huge
mhm,
then.
yeah,
So, like, I wasn't gonna say no, but I just felt like I would come home and I'd be like, "I don't wanna get in my car for, like, 24 hours," and then the next day go again.
mhm,
We got 3 today, we got 4 the next day. It was
yeah,
insane. So
yeah,
by the weekend, and I really try not to, now that I can, not schedule anything for Saturdays and Sundays. If
mhm,
I have an agent, it's like, "Ooh, it's the only day. All right, I'll do it." But I really try to keep Saturday and Sunday open for
mhm,
myself, um, just to breathe again, just to I come home and do absolutely nothing, you know? That was, yeah, that was definitely my burnout. And then we went from that to, well, what happened to the market, and it was
yeah,
gone. So you go from that high to that low, and that was like, I honestly started looking for other jobs at that point
mhm,
in time because it went such a drastic route
yeah,
that. And that's the other thing too, like, as a business person, you have to watch these things and see, but you
mhm,
also have to leave your options open to something else. If
mhm,
if things don't go right, it's one thing having a shop, but if you're, like us, where we can do other things, you always have to use those opportunities to look for something else, if you have to. Um, you know, I mean, I was doing just mainly real estate at that time, but
mhm,
yeah, that was my big that was I said, after you said it, I was like, oh, wait a minute, when have I burnt out? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the pandemic. It was the pandemic.
yeah,
As much as it was great because it was financially, it was wonderful for me. But it was, again, a toll on your whole psyche, your whole body, physically, mentally, everything. It was a lot. And then,
mhm,
again, even though, you go and shoot, and then I had 4 or 5 of them, and me being the smart person that I am, oh, I'll get it back to you in 24 hours. Oof.
oof.
So that is, I did all my drafting first, and then I would go and I would do, 5 shoots worth of houses
No.
and edit them. So, it was a lot. It was a real lot, and hence, Saturday and Sunday were my zen time. That was it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you edit all on your own, right? You don't
I
I
don't
just
send
no, no,
I don't send it
no,
out.
no, and you just do photos.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
man, yeah,
I
go
don't
on,
I
me.
I can't I don't know, maybe it's one of those things. I mean, believe me, I get
Mhm,
emails all the time, "Hey, we could do your photos," blah, blah.
mhm.
But there's something about doing your own photos,
Yeah.
you'll feel like my style or whatever.
Mhm.
And I actually had an agent come up to me. He's like, "Oh, you're the one that does the natural looking, real estate photos." I'm like, "Yeah, well, shouldn't it be natural?" I'll call me crazy, but that's my style. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm a little control freak. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm a control freak. So I enjoy
Yeah,
the editing process too. So
that's good. Yeah, for me, because of I do all of it, photo, video, drone.
right.
There's no time for me to edit, especially if I'm doing 3 or 4 a day.
Yep.
Something like that is no way I could do 24 hours. Maybe 48 or
Yep.
72, something like that, but even with I have an editing company for pictures and then also for video. Video, for some reason, was hard for me to find a good company to edit for me just because there's a lot of people that say they can edit, and then you look at the edit and it's like, "That's not editing."
That's not what I yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And so it's like I found this one company, I think they're in the Philippines, like more than half of them, for editing real estate videos specifically. I would have them edit everything,
Yep.
because just the way that they edit it, they edit better than I would, and that's sort of like my standard. If you can edit better than me, you're hired,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
That does the same for the pictures. I have a company in India that edits my pictures, and it's the same guy for one for video, one for pictures. Unfortunately, their English isn't very good
Yeah.
for the video, so I can't send them, like, documentaries or anything because they won't be able to do it. I've
Right.
asked them because
Yeah.
they had it really well. But anyway, um, so sort of looking back at your younger self, little Jenny, in the beginning of your business, what kind of advice would you give, her, knowing everything that you know now?
Oh. Um, Probably I would have said to I mean, I did a stint at college, but I would have definitely probably picked a different college, maybe gone for total photography and got my degree in photography. I did take photography classes, I took business classes, I took communication classes, and then I started working. And like I said, I learned more from my job than I did from school.
Mm,
So, but for the photography aspect, I wish I went to photography school, and got my degree in photography because I mean, I like even to do studio work.
mhm,
Yeah, I don't wanna do it because I never really I've tried, I've played around with it, I've worked with other photographers and to kind of figure it out, and I never really enjoyed the studio work. So,
mhm,
like, I think if I got all the aspects of going to a photography school and seeing all the different ways of early on,
mhm,
I mean, I've always said there's nothing like hands-on experience, like me going to, working where I worked and him kind of my boss throwing me into the whole business aspect of running a business was the best thing in the world. He taught me, I mean, that's when we were doing ledgers by hand, I would do the accounting by hand and everything else. Um, just learning that old school and then, now QuickBooks, it's like, woohoo, yeah, thank you.
mhm,
But I really wish that I did go for strictly photography and went away to college and just did it. And that's
mhm,
probably my only regret. I mean, I'm very happy with how I learned photography. And like I
mhm,
said, I did take classes at Quinnipiac and stuff. And I've worked with amazing photographers. So that in itself has helped me bring myself to where I am. And I'm appreciative to it. But I wish I did that and had the schooling behind it. So that would be my only thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's a sort of like one misconception that people may have about starting a business? Like maybe he could even go in
It's,
specifics of uh real like a photographer, like a photography business.
um, that it's easy. It's not easy. And it you can't just think about it that you're gonna open your business, throw a few pictures on Facebook, and you're gonna get a ton of business. And I guess for photographers, social media is great because we actually have our product that could be, right there in front of your face.
Mhm.
But it's about connections. It's about, connecting with people, connecting with your clients. I mean, I've sat with couples, and I'm sure you have too, where
Mhm.
you can tell if you're gonna work well together or not. Like
Mhm.
you have to be picky because if you don't feel that connection with somebody, and if
Yeah.
they don't feel that connection with you, it's not going to work well. I think that's very important to be upright and honest, like, and to say, listen, I wish you the best, but I just
Mhm.
don't feel like I'm the person for you. I don't feel like I'm the photographer or my style's the photographer for you. And be honest about it. Um, and it's time consuming. And don't
Mhm.
think you can just do it on the weekends. It's whenever.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's nice to have a job where you love what you do. And but the responsibility and everything else behind it is you have to take that into consideration. Deadlines, timelines, when people need stuff for it, if you're doing corporate stuff or whatever, it's
Yeah.
a lot to go into it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, how has the journey changed you as a person? You know, you've been at this for how many years have you been a photographer?
Since 19, well, my business was 2008. So I've been
Mhm.
since 2008. I've been doing it since I was 8 years old.
Mhm.
Um, but has how it's given me the, photography, like, in itself, it brings you with people.
Mhm.
Like, people's everybody knew who I was because you have this giant camera
Mhm.
strapped around your neck, number
Mhm.
1. Number 2, it's like people will, gravitate toward you because of the business and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And it's changed me in a pot. It's given me a lot of highs. I did the book. I have had photos in magazines.
Mhm.
I've gotten accolades for my photography.
Mhm.
So there's been a lot of highlights in my life where and it's not all business either. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the things that I did where I got accolades, it was because it was a charitable thing. And those things are important too. It's not just about making money. It's about
Mhm.
giving back to the community. And
Yeah.
that's huge. I still go down to the animal shelter every once in a while, every few months, and get pictures of the dogs and stuff like that to
Mhm.
help them, get them adopted.
Yeah.
It's you know, and they love it.
Mhm.
And I love it. I'm doing something good for these animals. Those are the things that make me happy about what I do. And it's a little thing. It's a little bit of time. I go down there, take pictures, or at an event, take pictures at a chamber event or a nonprofit event and give them the pictures, and it's like, it just, does your heart good, and those things
Yeah.
are important too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, alright. So these are sort of like the closing questions here, but I do wanna ask, you did allude to something about giving back. Um, in business, there's a lot that you learn. There's a lot of different things that the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, you know?
Yep.
What are kind of the if you would give you sort of said about your past self, but then also, aspiring photographers now, what kind of advice would you give, to prevent the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and you sort of said it also with the going to school and all of that. What are some of the other things with today's technology?
With today's technology, yeah, it's just be true to yourself. Number one, don't make sure your artwork, I don't know, it's genuine. I just feel like, there's just too much out there right now that's not genuine. And um get out, talk to people, talk to other photographers. Like, I mean, the best I did was with Carla and Steve was get out with them and learn. And I always say, and this too, like when
Mhm.
you start, be a second shooter with a photographer because you learn so much
Yeah.
from the main photographer. It's a huge thing. Um, I wonder where our profession is going to go.
Mhm.
And it is a little scary. Um, but if you truly love it and you stay true to yourself and you learn from people and you do stuff for the community, you'll do okay, but learn as much as you can from other people.
Mm.
It's not a bad thing to look for advice from another photographer. It's
Yeah.
actually, you can learn a lot, even just watching how somebody shoots.
Mhm.
It definitely is, and ask questions.
Yeah.
Hugely ask questions.
Yeah, and I believe the larger part of it is the personality behind the camera.
Yes.
Because anyone can know how to use the technology,
Mhm.
but if you have a crappy personality, they're never gonna hire you. There are
Exactly.
people that they would hire me just because of the person that I am,
Yes.
and the technology that I use is sort of second to that,
Yep.
and it's really an awesome feeling to have,
Yep. Yep.
and just being true to yourself, like you said, is
Yep.
really a huge aspect of being a business owner, period.
Yep.
I would say it's especially more true as a creative person owning a creative business because your creativity is genuine to who you are.
Correct. Yep.
And so it's really, I would say, uh, if you're writing notes, put like 5 asterisks next to it and all around it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, if you get a comment like, "Oh my god," Johnny did this, Johnny did that, and he helped. I mean, there were times at weddings, who, who did put on the boutonnieres? We did. Who, oh wait, you have to, you have a bug in your veil. Hold on, let me get
Mhm.
that out. Just it's like the little things that you don't
Yeah.
think of that, or something happens where you talk the bride off of a cliff. Like, listen,
Mhm.
nobody's gonna, it's a little thing. Nobody's gonna notice. Only you know. Don't worry about it. Just move
Mhm.
on. You're gonna have a great day. Blah blah blah. And just the little bit of being, a good person and saying, "Listen, don't worry. You're gonna be fine. You're still gonna be married at the end of the day, and nobody's gonna notice that there's one daisy knot in every,
Mhm.
uh, arrangement." But you know what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
true.
I know all too well.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Um, so winding down, so what's next for you, Jenny?
Ooh. Um, I'm sticking with the real estate. I'm
Mhm.
gonna bring back I'm pushing my portraits again. Um, to get back into that because like I said, real estate kind of really took over for my business. It was basically what I was doing. So I really want to get back into my portraits again, get into creative stuff. My poor kids are they're gonna be my subjects because I got plenty of them and they love it so much every time I do it to them. But just moving forward, and I mean, the chamber keeps me busy as well, and I do recommend it. That's one of the things. If you get into business, join your local chamber. It does put you in front of a lot of people. We would love to have you, and I'm sure all the other chambers that are out there.
Mhm.
It's a great business decision because it does put you in front of people. But get involved with it. Come
Mhm.
to business after hours. Johnny, come to the business after hours.
I will,
Uh,
I will, I will.
Available. But it is, because if you join, then, it's like a gym membership. If you
Mhm.
join and don't go, you're not going to see results.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Mhm.
But, I mean, I believe in it. Since 2008, I've been a member and I've gone through the whole, board and everything. And
Mhm.
it is a great place to have connections and contacts and I definitely recommend that as if you're starting your own business, do it. Try it out. It's good.
Awesome, awesome. And final note, is there anything else you wanted to mention that we didn't talk about?
Mm.
Maybe a plug for the chamber a little bit more or the
I
bell?
Plugged it pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Especially for the young kids, I know we are the chambers. Actually, we're trying to do a collaborative at the high school, and I think
Mhm.
that's important too. Um, for mentorship and getting them in for internships and helping them out with their capstones. This is another way of reaching out to the community, but also you never know. I worked with one of the a, a high school boy up there, and I had him come to chamber events, and he was doing his capstone, and I'm like, okay, because number one, it's hard to be a president and take the photos at the events. Like, I'm never in the photos, which always drives me crazy, and I'm president. But I had him come to the events and take pictures and have him get that feeling of what it's like to do a wedding or do an event. And,
Yeah.
then we would sit down and we would, call all the photos and what was good, what wasn't good, what he should have done right and what he should have, all different things. Um, but teaching other kids, but he ended up going on to something else. But this could have potentially been an assistant for me or a site for me. So you never know what your contacts are gonna, where they're gonna go. It could
Yeah.
easily be somebody that can work for you.
Mhm.
So those things are important as well.
Awesome.
And reach it out.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
So where can people connect you and support your work?
So if you want to check me out, it's at www.jhpct.com, and you can go to my website and all my contact information is there. You can email me, call me, text me, whatever. Everything's right on my website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. It was a pleasure speaking with you
Thanks.
again. And I'll be there to the what was it, evening mixers, as often as I'm able to. I need to connect. I need to get out
Yes, yes,
often.
please.
I will do that. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks again. Take care.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Johnny. Thank you.
Well, that was amazing. We laughed, we cried, we laughed again, and then we questioned our life. Jennifer, thanks for being a part of this podcast. And if you are interested in hearing more about her and her business, check out her details down below. Well, if there's one thing that I learned about Jennifer through this podcast, it's something I alluded to. That's to be true to yourself. If you want to grow your business, especially if you're creative, your personality is what you're really selling. Anyone could pick up a camera and take a picture, but not everyone could make the client happy that you're taking a picture of them and show your creativity through it. That's where you really shine. Be true to yourself. Okay. Until next time, take care.